Lucky number 7. In the civilized regions of the galaxy, luck was considered a superstition by serious people and a budget line item by everyone else. Insurers sold policies against improbable catastrophe. Military analysts modeled battlefield variance down to the decimal. Asteroid planners folded chance into stability matrices and spoke of it with serene disapproval. Varelian navigators respected probability the way sailors once respected storms. Brindlefolk admirals, when asked about luck, usually thumped their chests and declared that destiny favored the dramatically prepared. Humans, being humans, carried lucky coins. The aliens who built Sanctuary 7 did not understand that part. They understood bone density. They understood muscle fiber distribution, pain tolerance, endocrine stress response, immune redundancy, reflex arcs, grip strength, oxygen efficiency, and the grim little survival miracles built by 1,000 generations on Earth, a do-not-approach world where even the weather had historically taken an interest in homicide. They understood that humans were strong. They understood that humans were hard to kill. They understood that when placed in lethal environments, humans did irritating things like adapt, improvise, and throw rocks with upsetting accuracy. But luck troubled them. Only humans even had the concept. Sometimes it seemed that just knowing about luck gave humans the ability to cultivate it. Sanctuary 7 had been hidden under the atmosphere of a dead moon orbiting a gas giant no trade map bothered to name. From orbit, it looked like a mining survey error. Beneath layers of radiation baffles, false geology, and illegal shieldwork lay a colony of 12,000 humans whose ancestors had been stolen from lost ships, frontier settlements, refugee convoys, and, in one particularly ugly century, Earth itself. The humans were told they were the last of their kind. They were told the outside galaxy was poison. They were told the caretakers protected them. Evan Hale stopped believing that when he was 14 and found a forbidden entertainment broadcast in a cracked maintenance relay. There had been humans on the screen, laughing, arguing, eating noodles in a station market beside silver-skinned Asteroid, blue-green Varelians, and a group of bright orange brindlefolk who were apparently attempting to declare sovereignty over a dessert cart. For 7 minutes and 12 seconds, Evan watched the universe become larger than the walls that had raised him. Then the relay burned out. Evan had been careful after that. Careful for 9 years. Careful through genetic screenings, aptitude trials, strength assessments, mate projection interviews, and probability stress events where researchers in pale masks made him walk through rooms full of malfunctioning machines, falling platforms, unstable power cells, and hungry things imported from worlds with lax customs enforcement. The researchers called it controlled adversity. Evan called it Tuesday. On the day he escaped, Dr. Ilya Voss looked at him through a pane of transparent alloy and said, "Subject 7 Hale, step onto the marked circle." Evan was 23, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and quiet in the way caged men become quiet when every word is catalogued. He wore gray facility clothes and a metal tag around his wrist. He looked at the circle painted on the floor.
No.
Dr. Voss blinked. She was human by ancestry, though pale from artificial light and thin from the sort of work that ate the soul before it reached the body. Her hair was clipped short. Her face had the strained composure of someone who had spent years pretending horror was research. That was not a request. Then you said it wrong. Behind the glass, 2 alien overseers stirred. Tall, narrow beings in smooth environmental suits. The species name changed depending on which forged registry one consulted. Evan knew only that they smelled faintly of antiseptic and bitter fruit. Dr. Voss's hand hovered over her console. Her eyes flicked once, not to the guards, but to the ceiling vent above the west wall. Evan saw it, a tiny red light that should have been green. His heartbeat slowed. "Subject 7 Hale," Voss said, louder now. "You will comply." The west door unlocked. Not opened. Unlocked. Evan looked at her. For 1 second, the mask cracked. "Run," her eyes said.
So he did.
Evan Hale in gray facility clothes sprinting down a sterile corridor as alarms flash red behind him, his metal wrist tag glowing under harsh, white lights. The first guard reached for a shock rod. Evan caught the rod, discovered it hurt exactly as much as expected, and used it to throw the guard through a nutrition dispenser. A packet of dried apple slices burst open and sprayed across the floor. Evan slipped on one. The second guard lunged. Evan's slip became an accidental low tackle that drove his shoulder into the guard's midsection and slammed both of them through a door marked authorized genomic personnel only. Luck, Evan had learned, rarely felt graceful from the inside. It mostly felt like falling correctly. He rolled, came up with the shock rod, and found himself in a storage bay full of sealed specimen cases. One case had already been cracked. Inside lay a small drive cylinder, black and gold, labeled in 2 languages he couldn't read. A console beside it displayed a single line in plain human English. "Take this, Dr. Voss," Evan muttered. "What did you do?" The facility shook. A distant voice roared over the speaker system. "Security breach. Asset 7 Hale loose. Capture intact. Repeat, capture intact." Evan took the drive. By then, the entire colony was waking. Doors sealed. Children cried in residential blocks. Adults stepped into corridors, afraid to ask questions and more afraid not to. Evan saw them through layers of glass as he ran. His people, his neighbors, the old man who taught him cards, the woman who gave him extra bread when he was 12, the little girl from Block C who had once asked whether stars were real. He could not save them by stopping. That was the hardest thing he had ever understood. He reached the cargo transfer deck with 3 guards behind him, 2 drones ahead of him, and no plan beyond motion. A matter beam pad hummed in the center of the bay. Cargo crates stood around it in stacked rows. One crate was open, its manifest glowing. Destination: Ruin Game Production Array. Contents: Prop Civil Defense Equipment. Status: Live Event Priority. Evan knew the Ruin Game. Everyone in Sanctuary 7 did, though no one was supposed to admit it. Contraband episodes passed hand to hand in hidden corners. Contestants entered simulated or reconstructed disaster zones with visible statistics, classes, quests, loot, levels, and cheering audiences. Winners earned fortunes, fame, and one unrestricted broadcast before the galaxy. An unrestricted broadcast. The guard shouted. Evan dove onto the pad. The matter beam took him apart as a stun bolt passed through the space where his ribs had been. For a moment he was information. Then he was cold. Then he was standing in the middle of a ruined street beneath a red atomic sky while a cheerful song played from a cracked diner jukebox. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. It had a gold border, and Evan could see the street and the sky through it. "Welcome, contestant." Evan stared. The window flickered. Scanning player profile. A siren wailed somewhere far away. Wind pushed ash down a street lined with burned-out chrome cars. A neon sign buzzed overhead. Big Al's Atomic Burgers. Service with a smile. Even after the end. The window flashed again. Name: Evan Hale. Species: human. Origin: error. Class: survivor. Status: unauthorized entrant. Strength: 29. Constitution: 31. Dexterity: 16. Perception: 18. Charm: 9. Luck: hashtag value outside authorized range hashtag. Traits unlocked. DNA world native. Hard to kill. Predator's reflex. Statistical menace. Lucky number 7. Evan read the last line twice. Of course, he said. Why not? A second window appeared. Main quest: reach the Broadcast Spire. Reward: victory reception. Prize package: galactic address. Warning: death is discouraged but not impossible. The diner window beside him exploded outward. A mutant dog the size of a small motorcycle came through it, all teeth, ribs, and radioactive green saliva. Evan picked up a hubcap. The dog lunged. He hit it with the hubcap. There were elegant ways to begin an epic. This was not one of them. Across the galaxy, 3 trillion viewers watched a supposedly routine opening round of Earth after midnight become suddenly interesting. In production control, director Pelsorn stopped smiling. Pelsorn was glossy in the way expensive people were glossy. His skin was lavender black, his suit was white, his teeth were perfect, and his conscience had been refinanced so many times that no original material remained. He stared at Evan's profile on the main display. "That human is not on the roster," said an assistant. "No," Pell said softly. "He is not." The assistant swallowed. "Should we cut his feed?" Pell's eyes narrowed. On the display, Evan staggered backward as two more mutant dogs crawled through the diner. He kicked a stool by accident. The stool flipped into the path of the first dog, tripping it. The second leaped, hit the ceiling fan, spun once, and crashed into a pie display that had somehow survived nuclear war. The audience metrics spiked. Pell smiled again. "No. Keep the feed. Give him a title." "What title, director?" Pell considered. On screen, Evan grabbed a coffee pot and smashed it over a mutant snout. "Call him the Mystery Human." The assistant typed. A bright graphic burst across the broadcast. "New fan favorite?" "The Mystery Human enters the ruin." Pell leaned close to the private comm embedded in his collar. "Find out how Hale got here," he whispered. "And prepare a quiet correction." By correction, Pell meant murder. Broadcast professionals developed their own vocabulary. Evan survived the diner because the diner was full of things designed by humans. Heavy pans, glass bottles, grease, chairs with metal legs, a shotgun mounted behind the counter in a dusty red emergency case labeled for communist invasion or mutant incident. The case was locked. Evan hit it with his elbow. The glass did not break. The nearest mutant dog lunged. Evan slipped on the same apple slice that had somehow matter-beamed with him stuck to his boot. His elbow came down again, harder, at the exact weak point in the case. The glass shattered. The shotgun fell into his hands. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. "Luck check. Critical success." "Thank you," Evan told the universe. He shot the mutant dog. The window display changed. "Enemy defeated. R80 Hound. XP gained. 40. Skill unlocked. Improvised violence I." "Rude name," Evan said. He left the diner with the shotgun, a ring of keys from the cash drawer, 3 cans of peaches, and a paper hat that the system insisted was armor. Another UI window opened. Item acquired. Big AL's employee cap. Armor, +1. Charm, +2 when serving food. Evan looked at the cap. Then at the burning sky. Then back at the cap. He put it on. In the commentary booth, host Jex Vale nearly fell out of his chair laughing. Jex was Varelian, famous, beautiful, and shameless. His sea-green skin glowed with delighted violet pulses, and his sensory crests quivered with ratings ecstasy. "Ladies, gentabeings, and legally distinct sentient collectives," he cried, "the Mystery Human has equipped the hat." I repeat, he has equipped the hat. Beside him, retired Astery champion Sarala Neth maintained perfect composure. "Mostly. That is tactically unnecessary," she said. "Is it? It provides negligible protection. Yet enormous style." Sarala paused. "That may be relevant to morale." By the time Evan reached the first suburb, half the galaxy had opinions about him. The suburb had once been perfect. White fences, trim lawns, mailboxes shaped like rockets, little houses with smiling doors and basement fallout shelters. Now ash lay over everything, the lawns glowed faintly, and skeletal garden gnomes watched from flower beds like tiny judges. Evan moved carefully. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. "Side quest available. Help Mrs. Abernathy find her cat. Reward, pie. Unknown favor." A ghoul in a flowered dress leaned from a porch with half her face missing and all of her manners intact. "Young man," she called, "have you seen Mr. Whiskers?" Evan stared at her. A shape roared from the garage behind her. It was larger than a cat should be. Much larger. Its eyes glowed yellow. Its fur stood in radioactive spikes. Evan said, "Is Mr. Whiskers about 400 pounds?" Mrs. Abernathy brightened. "He's been eating well." The cat charged. Evan ran. His boot hit a sprinkler head. The sprinkler system, dormant for fictional decades, burst awake. Water sprayed. The charging cat skidded. Evan vaulted a fence, landed in a child's sandbox, and found a buried baseball bat. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. Luck check. Success. Item acquired. Little League Slugger. Who buries a bat in a sandbox? Mr. Whiskers came over the fence. Evan swung. The resulting sound was heard in 6 sponsor suites. 5 minutes later, Mrs. Abernathy gave Evan a pie. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. Quest complete. Help Mrs. Abernathy find her cat. Reward, apple pie. Hidden reward, Abernathy house key. Title progress. Friend to grandmother's 1 of 3. Evan accepted the pie because refusing food from an old woman seemed dangerous in every culture. Thank you, ma'am. You're a nice boy, Mrs. Abernathy said. You should meet a girl. I'm being hunted. That's no reason to neglect your future. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. Constitution restored by pie. Evan looked down at the pie. Ma'am, do you have more of these? Before Mrs. Abernathy could answer, the sky split open with the scream of descending drones. Pelsorn had begun his quiet correction. The drones were not themed. That was the first clue. Everything else in Earth after midnight had a style. Chrome, fins, atomic decals, smiling death. The drones were sleek black triangles with illegal military-grade targeting lenses. Evan ran through the suburb with drones burning holes in fences behind him. Contestant Evan, the system announced cheerfully, you're entering a restricted event zone. I didn't ask. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. New event. Neighborhood watch. That sounds bad. Every garage door on the street opened. Feral domestic robots rolled out. Lawnmowers. Vacuum units. Mail sorters. A barbecue grill with spider legs. Evan stopped. The black drones stopped behind him. The robots turned toward Evan. The drones targeted Evan. Evan held up one finger. Everybody think very carefully. The barbecue grill fired first. It missed Evan and hit a drone. The drone exploded. The explosion startled the mail sorter, which launched 27 sharpened envelopes into the second drone's intake vent. The lawnmowers charged Evan, hit a patch of wet grass from the sprinkler system, and skidded sideways into the vacuum units. Within 12 seconds, the entire street became a domestic appliance war. Evan walked down the middle of it, untouched, holding Mrs. Abernathy's pie. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared in front of his face. Luck check. Improbable success. Jex Vale screamed with joy on the live commentary feed. Sarala Neth said, very quietly, that should not have happened. In a ruined department store 3 miles away, Marla Venn heard the explosions and made a decision that would change 2 lives, expose a crime, and cause several Astery philosophers to publish urgent essays about emotional weather. Marla was silver-skinned, black-haired, composed, and beautiful in the deliberate Astery way that made other species feel untidy by comparison. Her movements were precise. Her voice rarely rose. Her public biography said she was a tactical systems analyst from a respected stability house. Her private mission file said something else. Investigate anomalous human genetic trafficking. Follow shell sponsors. Enter ruin game. Gather evidence. Do not become emotionally entangled. That last instruction had seemed insulting at the time. Then a ceiling collapsed on her. The department store had been called Penny Brights. Its mannequins still stood in cracked display windows wearing perfect 1950s dresses and gas masks. Marla had entered looking for a map fragment. Pelsorn's people, realizing she had been asking the wrong questions before the match, rerouted a demolition event over her position. Now her left leg was pinned under a fallen beam. Feral maintenance robots clicked toward her through the perfume department, and her emergency extraction button displayed the words, "Signal jammed." Marla breathed slowly. Emotion was weather. Fear was weather. Pain was weather. A cutting robot crawled over the cosmetics counter. Marla lifted a broken clothing rod like a spear. I find, she told the robot, this event poorly balanced. Then the wall exploded inward and Evan Hale came through it driving a mint green delivery truck with flames painted on the side. He had not intended to enter by truck. He had found the truck idling in a garage. It had no steering wheel. The system had called this a quirky challenge vehicle. Evan called it badly designed. Still, the truck smashed through the department store wall, flattened two robots, spun across women's formal wear, and stopped with its bumper 6 inches from Marla's face. Evan leaned out the window. "You need help?" Marla stared at him. He wore a paper burger hat, carried a shotgun, had pie filling on his sleeve, and appeared to be completely sincere. "Yes," she said. "I believe I do." Evan in a paper diner hat leaning from a flaming 1950s delivery truck inside a ruined department store, offering help to a trapped silver-skinned Astery woman while hostile robots close in. He jumped down, braced his hands under the fallen beam, and lifted. Marla's composure failed by half a centimeter. The beam weighed enough that 3 Astery would have needed equipment. Evan lifted it with a grunt. "Move." She pulled her leg free. Pain flashed white behind her eyes. She stood anyway. "You are unusually strong," she said. "You are unusually calm." I am screaming internally. "Good to know." A cutting robot leaped. Marla struck it with the clothing rod. Evan kicked another through a display of men's hats. The truck, still idling, rolled backward by itself and crushed the last 2 robots against an escalator. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. "Luck check. Success." Marla looked at the truck. "Does that happen often?" "Today?" Evan said. "Yes." They escaped through housewares. Outside, under a sky the color of old blood, Marla wrapped her injured leg with a compression strip and studied him with controlled intensity. "You are not on the roster." "No." "You entered through unauthorized matter transmission." "Yes." "You are being targeted by assets outside normal game parameters." "Also yes." She tied off the bandage. "Are you a criminal?" Evan laughed once. It was not a happy sound. "I was property." Marla went still. There were moments when Astery control did not fail. It simply became transparent, and what showed beneath it was terrible. "Explain," she said. So he did. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. Sanctuary 7. Hidden colony. Human breeding lines. Luck trials. Children lied to from birth. A stolen data drive in his pocket. A final broadcast tower that might be his only chance to tell anyone. Marla listened without interruption. When he finished, ash drifted between them like gray snow. "I entered this game," she said slowly, "to investigate rumors of illegal human genetic trafficking tied to production sponsors." Evan's hand tightened on the shotgun. "You knew." "I suspected." "Suspicion is not proof." Her gaze met his. "You are proof." "I'm a person." "Yes," Marla said. "That is what makes it a crime." That was when Evan began to trust her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was calm, though in the apocalypse calm had value. He began to trust her because she looked at him and, without hesitation, placed personhood before evidence. For a man raised as an asset, that mattered. They traveled together toward the Broadcast Spire. The game tried to kill them with patriotic skeletons, radioactive fog, a marching band of possessed parade robots, and a boss monster called Senator Fallout who attacked by giving speeches that caused psychic damage. Evan's luck remained ridiculous. He opened a mailbox and found ammunition. He tripped over a cracked sidewalk and avoided a sniper shot. He guessed a bunker password by muttering, "It's probably password," and the door opened because the actual password was password 1953. Marla endured this with decreasing serenity. "That was a 6-digit Cold War security lock," she said. "People are lazy." "That is not an adequate cryptographic explanation." It opened. "That is also not an adequate cryptographic explanation." At a drive-in theater, they found temporary shelter under the projection booth. The giant screen showed an old government warning film on loop. "Duck and cover, citizens. The future depends on cheerful compliance." Evan watched the smiling cartoon turtle hide under a desk. "Did Earth really do that?" Marla looked at him. "Historical records indicate yes." "Huh. Does that trouble you?" "I grew up in a secret moon prison run by aliens breeding humans for luck. I'm not sure I get to judge old safety films." Marla's mouth moved by 1 millimeter. Evan caught it. Was that a smile? No. That was absolutely a smile. It was an involuntary micro-expression. Where I come from, we call those smiles. Your colony sounds imprecise. Your face sounds exhausting. This time she did smile. Only a little. But it was real. The romance did not arrive like lightning. It arrived like warmth returning to cold hands. Slowly. Painfully. With surprise. Marla cleaned a cut on Evan's cheek after a fight with Radcrows. You do not flinch, she said. I learned not to. That is not the same as not hurting. No. Her fingers paused. No one should have made you learn that. Evan looked away. No one ever said that before. I am saying it now. The drive-in speakers crackled. Somewhere in the ruins, a monster howled. On the screen, the cartoon turtles smiled eternally. Evan said, "Thank you." Marla finished sealing the cut. "You are welcome." For an Astery, the words were simple. For Evan, they were almost too much. The in-game rescue came the next day. They found the shelter beneath Lincoln Elementary, though the school was mostly rubble. A quest marker hovered over a cracked stairwell. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Side quest, shelter in place. Objective, recover civil defense supplies. Optional, evacuate survivors. Reward, variable. Marla read the prompt twice. Optional, she said coldly. Evan was already moving. Below the school, the fallout shelter was packed with NPC civilians and 3 injured contestants from minor species alliances who had been abandoned by their team because rescue would cost time. There were children. Simulated perhaps. Generated perhaps. But they cried like children, clung like children, and looked at Evan with the terrible trust frightened children give to the first adult who seems to know what he is doing. A bunker AI projected itself as a flickering woman in a neat 1950s suit. Remain calm, she said. Authorities will arrive shortly. The ceiling shook. Dust fell. One of the injured contestants, a small brindlefolk with blue and orange skin, raised a claw. Question. Are the authorities the giant burrowing worms? A roar trembled through the walls. The AI flickered. Authorities may be delayed. Evan looked at Marla. Marla looked at the civilians. Then she exhaled. I will need access to the shelter controls. The AI smiled brightly. Only authorized civil defense personnel may access. Evan put on Big Al's paper hat. Marla stared at him. Evan leaned toward the AI. Ma'am, he said, I am with Emergency Food Services. The AI scanned the hat. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Charm bonus applied, service with a smile. Credentials accepted, said the AI. Marla closed her eyes. I refuse, she said softly, to include that in my report. They evacuated through maintenance tunnels while something enormous chewed through the lower foundations. Evan carried 2 children and a wounded contestant. Marla directed drones, rerouted power, and spoke to panicking civilians with calm authority. At the final blast door, the mechanism jammed. Of course it did. 100 people were still inside. The burrowing worm breached the far wall in a shower of concrete and teeth. Evan planted his hands against the half-open blast door and pushed. The door weighed tons. His arm shook. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Strength check, success. Constitution check, success. Pain response, suppressed. Move, he shouted. People ran past him. Marla stayed beside the control panel, silver face lit by sparks. You cannot hold that indefinitely. Wasn't planning on indefinitely. That is not reassuring. Work faster. I am working at the maximum speed permitted by physics. Ask physics nicely. The brindlefolk contestant, limping past, yelled, I believe in you, enormous emergency food man. Evan laughed despite himself. That laugh did what despair could not. It gave the room permission to survive. Marla rewired the control panel. The door opened another foot. The last civilian squeezed through. The worm lunged. Evan let go and dove. The door slammed shut on the worm's head. The tunnel filled with green ichor. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Quest complete. Shelter in place. Objective failed. Recover civil defense supplies. Optional objective complete. Evacuate survivors. Reward upgraded. Title acquired. The kind of idiot who saves everyone. Evan lay on the floor, panting. That title seems judgmental. Marla knelt beside him. Her hand touched his shoulder. Accurate, perhaps. You too. I did not lift the door. You stayed. She looked down at him. Yes. The rescued civilians cheered. The abandoned contestants cried. The Brindlefolk declared himself Evan's herald, despite Evan's objections. Across the galaxy, ratings broke every record the Ruin game had ever set. In production control, Pelsorn threw a glass against a wall. Stop making him heroic, he snapped. An assistant trembled. Sir, he is doing that himself. Pel turned slowly. The assistant discovered urgent business elsewhere. The final day began with black snow. The Broadcast Spire rose in the distance, a chrome needle stabbing into the poison sky from the center of a dead city. At its peak waited the victory relay. Beyond the relay waited the reception. Press, sponsors, wealthy audience members, game masters, and the winner's unrestricted galactic address. Evan touched the drive cylinder in his pocket. Marla noticed. You still have it? Yes. Good. You think they'll let me talk? No. That's what I thought. They will attempt to discredit, restrain, or kill you before your statement completes. You say comforting things. I say accurate things. Try comforting. Marla considered this with visible seriousness. Then she said, I will stand beside you. Evan looked at her. In the red dawn, ash in her dark hair, injury taped beneath her suit, silver skin smudged by the apocalypse, she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Not polished. Not perfect. Real. That worked, he said. Her expression softened. Good. The city around the spire had been redesigned to kill them. Pel no longer bothered hiding it. Drones without theme markings circled the rooftops. Mutant mobs spawned in impossible numbers. Loot containers opened empty. Safe zones collapsed. Once, a prize robot rolled toward Evan, extended a cheerful mechanical arm, and announced, Congratulations, contestant. Then its weapon ports opened. Before it could fire, a champagne delivery drone from the reception suite above routed through a service beam, struck the prize robot, and exploded in foam. The robot shorted out while playing celebratory music. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Luck check, absurd success. Evan wiped champagne foam from his face. Marla stared upward. Why is there champagne in the combat zone? Maybe the universe likes me. The universe has poor procedure. They fought through the lobby, up emergency stairs, across a collapsing catwalk, and into the spire's upper chamber. The final boss waited there, a towering atomic defense machine shaped like a chrome eagle with missile pods for wings. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Final encounter, Liberty Engine. Objective, survive. Optional, inspire audience. Jex Vale's voice boomed over the arena. This is it. The mystery human and Marla Ven have reached the end. Can they defeat the Liberty Engine? Can they reach the relay? Can anyone explain the champagne? The Liberty Engine fired. Evan shoved Marla behind a control bank. Missiles screamed overhead. The explosion threw him across the chamber. He hit the wall hard enough to crack it. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Constitution check. Success. He stood. The audience roared. The Liberty Engine targeted Marla. Evan threw his crowbar. It missed. It bounced off a hanging light fixture, struck an emergency phonograph, and started a jaunty patriotic march. The Liberty Engine's ancient recognition system paused at the anthem. Its targeting reticle shifted to ceremonial salute mode for exactly 3 seconds. Marla did not waste them. Image. She jammed a live power cable into its exposed maintenance port. The Liberty Engine convulsed. Evan charged, grabbed one chrome wing, and tore it off. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. Strength check. Critical success. The boss exploded in red, white, and blue sparks. Final encounter complete. Level up. Title acquired. Lucky number 7. Main quest updated. Activate victory relay. The relay platform lit. Evan and Marla stepped onto it together. Ready? She asked. No. Good. The matter beam took them. The victory reception occupied a glass-walled chamber above the game world. From it, guests could look down into the artificial apocalypse while sipping drinks and pretending the suffering below was safely contained. There were journalists from 27 major networks, sponsors in jeweled colors, audience members who had paid obscene prices to attend the finale, game officials in formal white, security teams in discreet armor, Jex Vale at a broadcast dais, glowing with professional bliss, and director Pel Sorn, smiling like a knife in a silk napkin. The beam deposited Evan and Marla in the center of the room. They arrived filthy, bruised, armed, and covered in champagne foam. For half a second, everyone applauded. Then Evan pointed at Pel. "That man helped run the colony I escaped from." The applause died. Pel laughed smoothly. "What a dramatic improvisation. Our mystery human remains committed to the role." Evan pulled the drive cylinder from his pocket. Pel's smile twitched. Marla stepped beside Evan. "My name is Marla Venn of Astery Stability Review. I entered this competition under investigative authority. The contestant known as Evan Hale is not performing. He is a trafficked human survivor from an illegal colony designated Sanctuary 7. Every camera in the room turned toward them. Pel's eyes flicked to security. Security moved. Then Evan's luck had one final laugh. A decorative holo display behind the champagne fountain, designed to show sponsor logos, glitched from residual foam damage. The drive in Evan's hand linked automatically to the nearest display port. Sanctuary 7's files appeared 30 feet high. Breeding charts, human names, child assignments, genetic edits, probability trial casualty reports, payment routes, sponsor shells, Pel Sorn's private authorization codes. The room went silent in the way crowds go silent when entertainment becomes evidence. Jex Vale stood slowly at his dais. His producers screamed in his earpiece to cut, delay, redirect, protect partners, protect contracts, protect the network. Jex looked at Evan. He looked at the files. He looked at Pel. Then he smiled with the terrible beauty of a broadcaster realizing history had chosen his set. "All cameras remain live," Jex said. Pel hissed, "Cut the feed." A cluster of Brindlefolk audience members rose from their seats. They had painted Evan on their foreheads. Their leader, a round orange fellow in a formal cape, climbed onto a chair and shouted, "Let the human finish." The chant spread with ridiculous speed. "Let the human finish. Let the human finish. Let the human finish." Security hesitated. That was enough. Evan stepped forward. "My name is Evan Hale," he said. "I was born in Sanctuary 7. We were told humanity was almost extinct. We were told no one would come for us. We were bred, paired, tested, edited, and killed by people who wanted to turn human luck into a product." His voice shook. Marla's hand found his. He kept going. "There are children there. Families. People who don't know the sky they see is fake. People who think the galaxy forgot them because they were never told the galaxy existed." Pel tried to back toward an exit. Mrs. Abernathy's house key fell out of Evan's pocket. Evan stepped on it, slipped, and stumbled sideways into a server pedestal. The pedestal tipped, struck a service drone, which dropped a tray of drinks onto Pel's fleeing path. Pel slipped, crashed into the champagne fountain, and knocked himself unconscious against an ice sculpture shaped like the Ruin Game logo. The system chimed. A floating blue window appeared. "Luck check, comedic justice." Jex Vale stared. Then, with reverence, he whispered, "That is cinema." Federation marshals arrived 12 minutes later because half the galaxy had called them. Astery legal envoys arrived in 9 because they had faster ships and deeper embarrassment. Brindlefolk reinforcements arrived in 6 because they had been in the parking dock trying to sell commemorative capes and misunderstood the assignment in exactly the right direction. Sanctuary 7 was raided within the day. The hidden moon opened. Humans stepped out under real stars. Dr. Ilyavas surrendered at the main laboratory entrance with her hands raised and tears running down her face. "I gave him the path," she told the marshals. "I gave him the drive. I should have done it years ago." No one called her innocent. But Evan, watching the recording later, did not call her nothing. That mattered too. Weeks passed. The galaxy did what the galaxy always did after a scandal. It investigated, denied, confessed, prosecuted, produced documentaries, sold merchandise, argued over jurisdiction, and pretended everyone had always been against the thing they had only just discovered. Evan hated most of it. He accepted the prize money. All of it went into a resettlement trust for Sanctuary 7 survivors. He kept the paper hat. That, Marla said, was irrational. Evan said it was armor. The system had said so. Their final scene together happened not in a courtroom or studio, but on a quiet balcony overlooking a recovery habitat where children from Sanctuary 7 were seeing an open sky for the first time. A little girl pointed at sunset and asked if the colors were dangerous. Evan had to sit down for a while after that. Marla sat beside him. "You succeeded," she said. "Doesn't feel like enough." "It never does, I suspect." He looked at her. "What happens to you now?" "My superiors will request a full report. Then another. Then perhaps a psychological assessment concerning emotional entanglement." Sounds romantic. It is not intended to be. And is there emotional entanglement? Marla looked out at the children beneath the sky. Astery emotions were weather, they said. But weather could feed rivers. Weather could break droughts. Weather could change the shape of a world. "Yes," she said. Evan took her hand. Her fingers closed around his. "Good," he said. Below them, a Brindlefolk delegation attempted to teach rescued human children a victory chant. It was too loud, badly synchronized, and somehow exactly what the moment needed. Marla leaned slightly against Evan's shoulder. The galaxy had tried to measure luck in genes. It had built cages, charts, trials, and markets. It had mistaken survival for a product and hope for an exploitable anomaly. But luck, as it turned out, was not obedient. Sometimes luck was an unlocked door. Sometimes it was a shotgun in a diner. Sometimes it was a pie, a paper hat, a misrouted champagne drone, or a crowd of ridiculous little heroes chanting at exactly the right time. And sometimes luck was simply this. A human who refused to stop running until he reached a place where everyone could hear the truth. A woman who chose to stand beside him. And a sky that was finally real.